Thank you guys so much for coming to our panel. We're just reading creative writing stuff. We were 3 and now we are 2 people reading. Even though it seems like a little bit vain of me to be both moderating and reading first, we decided to stick with the order that was in the program, because that way if people are trying to like go to the first thing and then come see you, they don't miss you because we rearranged. So we're gonna do that, and then I'm gonna tell you about myself first, which is weird, but we're doing it. I'm Mary Kay McBrayer. I'm a horror enthusiast, sideshow lover, prose writer, and literature professor from south of Atlanta. My book, America's First Female Serial Killer, is available for pre-order. You can read my posts on Book Riot, and you can hear my analysis and jokes about scary movies on the podcast I co-founded with my 2 salty, smart best friends, called Everything Trying to Kill You. Also, Caitlin, one of our audience members, was a guest on one of those episodes, so shout out.
Yeah.
I'm going to be reading today a piece called On the Tough Guy with the Heart of Gold. It's a meditative essay about that trope in popular culture and how it applies to real life. So here we go, and I'm going to try to put on a show. Okay, so the first, it's written in sections, and I'll tell you the title, and then most of them have an epigraph, but it's called On the Tough Guy with the Heart of Gold, and I'm Mary Kay McBrayer. And the first section is called True Grit. The epigraph is, she said, "Goodbye, Rooster. A love of decency does not abide in you. I said, goodbye, Nola. I hope that little nail-selling bastard keeps you happy this time." And that's from Rooster Cogburn from the movie True Grit. So, Maddie Ross takes her family savings into town in search of a bounty hunter to avenge her daddy's death. She asks around, and when she finally confronts U.S. Marshal Rooster Cogburn, he's standing trial for murder. On the way out of the courtroom, Maddie Ross says, "They tell me you are a man with true grit." She grabs his cigarette makings, criticizes their quality, and explains the situation. Rooster, in turn, criticizes her pistol and tries to push past her. Maddie insists that she has to be the person to kill Tom Chaney, or no one will avenge her father's death, not even the law. She says, "My brother is a child, and my mother is indecisive and hobbled by grief." He won't agree, doesn't believe she has the money, and walks out of the courthouse in the other direction. This is far from the end of their interactions with one another, obviously. Our affection for U.S. Marshal Rooster Cogburn grows every time we see him commend or defend Maddie, whether it's when she swims her horse across the river to catch up to him and accuse him of stealing her money, whether when he threatens to shoot Texas Ranger LaBeef for spanking Maddie, when he explains his strategy for finding Tom Chaney, or even when he incorporates her help into his plan. Though his character unmistakably warrants that of the anti-hero, for what killer should allow himself empathy? We love Rooster for these small kindnesses. In the Wild West, where Maddie Ross, however precocious and quick-witted she is, would have no chance at avenging her father's murder, Rooster provides that service for a nominal fee. On a traditional alignment scale, bounty hunters function as mercenaries, which is chaotic neutral, just like right in the middle. For hire by the highest payer, regardless of whether legally aligned with the law. Rooster proves himself honorable, however, halfway through the film when he says, it's time for you to learn that you cannot have your way in every little particular. If you find I fail to satisfy your terms, I will return your money at the end of this expedition. A sensible person does not forget that he has killed so many people that he appears to have lost count. Or if he has not lost count, then he is having fun with the attorney prosecuting him for murder in the courthouse. By the time the movie ends, though, its audience is no longer filled with objective, sensible people. We love Rooster for his good deeds, his overall moral nature, although his moral ambiguity does not align with ours, generally speaking. Against all odds, he has chosen to be good in this case by saving Maddie Ross and disappearing without taking his fee. This second section is called May Their First Child Be a Masculine Child. Luca Brasi, played by the 6'6", 320-pound Lenny Montana, is observed at Connie Corleone's wedding by a +1. Why is that scary man over there talking to himself? The audience learns that with Kay, that Luca Brasi is Don Vito Corleone's most trusted enforcer, that he is the one man capable of hitting a mark by himself, that he is the one who held the pistol to Les Halley's head and said either his signature or his brains would be on Johnny Fontaine's release form. Brasi is not the one who makes the unrefusable offers, but he is the one who enforces their consequences. It's hard to picture that, though, in the context of the party, looking at the sweating, nervous Brazzi. He holds a scrap of paper and reads it to himself over and over as he waits outside the Don study to observe the Sicilian tradition. On his daughter's wedding day, anyone can ask a man for a favor. Because Don Corleone is the man of whom everyone wants favors, his queue is extensive. When Don Corleone rises and announces that he wants to enjoy his daughter's wedding reception, his consigliere reminds him that he has one more meeting. Is this really necessary? Don Corleone asks. Tom Hagen replies, well, he didn't expect to be invited. Even more difficult to align in the viewer's head is the image of the giant Brazzi trembling at the thought of Don Corleone, the manicured bulldog of a man who pets a cat while he discusses the concept of justice with an undertaker. When he enters the study, Luca Brazzi tries to recite from memory, Don Corleone, I am honored and grateful that you have invited me to your daughter's wedding, on the day of your daughter's wedding, and I hope their first child be a masculine child. I pledge my never-ending loyalty. And as children come into the room playing, he slides an envelope into Don Corleone's hand and concludes, for your daughter's bridal purse. Among the entire line of wedding guests, he alone does not ask a favor. He only wants to remind the godfather of his gratitude because Brazzi is a tough guy. He does not see himself as anything else. Corleone thanks him. Luca Brazzi says, I'm gonna leave you now because I know you are busy. And he does. We're led to assume that Brazzi both respects and fears Don Corleone in the way that we so often want to impress the person that we respect, and we fear what will happen to our psyche if we disappoint them. We do not see Brazzi on screen again until he is to send the Don a message. From this murder comes one of the most famous lines in The Godfather. Luca Brazzi sleeps with the fishes. Every time I watch this scene, I am devastated at Luca Brazzi's death because a loyalty like that is so uncommon. In Mario Puzo's novel from which the film was adapted, it is also noted that each of these men are the other's only fear. The next section is called Saving the Cat. Rick Blaine is unlikable when we first meet him in his saloon, in his white tuxedo, chin tipped down but eyes tipped up, smoking a cigar over a chess table and bouncing someone from his lounge. His friend describes Rick as both totally neutral among the Allied and Axis powers of World War II, and that he never provides travel visas illegally, not to any refugee. In passing, he says, I stick my neck out for no one. We are made to believe that Rick has no emotions, that his morality is so specialized that it looks like anarchy to anyone else, as he waves hello to a Nazi soldier and opens his doors to European refugees alike. Yet Renault says of him, Rick is the kind of man, well, if I were a woman, and I were not around, I should be in love with Rick. He says this, of course, to the woman with whom Rick was once in love, Ilsa, in Paris, before she abandoned him to board the train en route to Casablanca alone. Rick is understandably cold towards Ilsa when they meet in Casablanca, but he is cold to nearly everyone, maintaining his, quote, totally neutral stance in all dichotomies until a beautiful underage Bulgarian woman in a trim black dress and a flawless page boy haircut, or hairstyle, I guess, bats her large, dark, dewy eyes at him and asks him to vouch for Captain Renault, with whom she has traded sex for her and her husband's travel visas. When he says neutrally that Captain Renault always has kept his word, the woman says, Monsieur, you are a man. If someone loved you very much, so that your happiness was the only thing she wanted in the world, and she did a bad thing to make certain of it, could you forgive her? He replies almost immediately, staring into the middle distance, nobody ever loved me that much. Everybody in Casablanca has problems. Yours may work out. You'll excuse me. And then in the first heartfelt action we see from Rick in real time, he finds the woman's husband at the roulette table where he's trying to win the money to get to Lisbon, and then America once they are awarded the travel visas. He is losing. Rick, with the same poker face he's maintained for all events in the chronological narrative, tells him to bet twice on the number 22. He does, and he wins twice. And Rick whispers sternly, cash it in and don't come back. The woman is so happy she hugs him and nearly cries. This is the first time among all his neutrality that the audience empathizes with Rick. Before, We knew he was cool because he was aloof. But now we see that his toughness is only a defense mechanism. He loves Ilsa and he would do anything for her. The Bulgarian girl is her proxy. This small kindness makes us want happiness for Rick. Suddenly, it confirms the suspicions that he actually is worthy of our infatuation. And it shows us that despite his hard-boiled exterior, he is deep down the quote, rank sentimentalist Renault accuses him of being. His inner sentimentalism, his heart of gold, is what makes Casablanca the greatest love story ever told. The next section is called The Bull Moose, and the epigraph is, now look, that damn cowboy is the President of the United States, and that's from Mark Hanna. In many ways, Theodore Roosevelt is the off-screen archetype for the tough guy with the heart of gold, as is evidenced in his multiple popular culture representations. He was an asthmatic, myopic child who declared to his disappointed father, I will make my body, and then he did. Among his myriad tough guy accomplishments, he was a boxer and a rower. He joined the United States Army and then the National Guard, and he helped to form the Rough Riders of the Spanish-American War. He was police chief of New York City in the late 1800s. When President McKinley was assassinated and TR was to be inaugurated his successor, the rumor goes that he had to be found while on a hunting trip. While campaigning for a third presidential term in an independent party, TR was shot in the chest with a .38. He is recorded as saying, "Friends, I shall ask you to be as quiet as possible. I don't know whether you fully understand that I have just been shot, but it takes more than that to kill a bull moose." His party was henceforward known as the Bull Moose Party, and that speech lasted 84 minutes. It will surprise no one to hear that he is also the only U.S. president with a confirmed tattoo. On the South Side, however, he apparently had a very high-pitched voice. He stood outside the White House and shook every citizen's hand on New Year's Day of 1901. He is responsible for our national parks. He kept a pocket journal, and he was so very in love with his wife that when she died giving birth, he wrote in his diary a large X, and underneath it, one simple sentence: "The light has gone out of my life." This fact is little known and mostly overshadowed by his more masculine accomplishments. The teddy bear is, of course, named after him. The last section is called Famous Last Words and it has a bunch of epigraphs. Here's looking at you, kid, from Casablanca. I wish I knew how to quit you, from Brokeback Mountain. Well, come see a one-eyed fat man sometime, from True Grit. Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn, from Gone with the Wind, obviously. It is a far, far better thing I do than ever I have done, from My Tale of Two Cities. And my personal favorite, Go on, you're free, get out of here, go on, go, from White Fang. We always think we'll be the Lauren Bacall to the Humphrey Bogart, the one who fits him, who'll let him relax, convince him that he can be happy and tough too. Because it makes us feel special to land someone as fiercely independent as he, but it does not work that way. Humphrey Bogart was not actually Philip Marlowe. It was a role he was paid to play, a character, a detective who was not very good at his job, the Indiana Jones of private investigation. Rooster Cogburn was a bounty hunter. Luca Brasi was a hitman. Rick Blaine owned a bar and did not take a side in World War II. These are not good men. Theodore Roosevelt is the likeliest exception, but he was a man, not a character, and certainly not actually a bull moose. These qualities are the ones we have romanticized. These characters served as my romantic role models because they were the men I grew up idolizing, stern on the outside, sweet on the inside. It was them I saw when the guy at the end of the bar was listening to my conversation. He was handsome, compact, fit in a grizzled detective kind of way. My girlfriend invited him to the show in the bar's basement and he paid for my entry. She thought it was nice, but I had his game. He told me about the friends he was training for bare-knuckle boxing and asked me to watch his bag of surveillance equipment when he went to the bathroom. "Why'd you ask me to do that?" I asked. "What makes you think I would steal it?" "Seed of doubt," he said. I went out with him anyway. His love language was weird showboating protection, like, "You guys are not going to believe this is true, but I swear it is. Offering background checks on men my mother dated. Running plates of people who dinged my car when it was street parked. Picking almost fights with men who flirted with me at his regular bar. Taking me to Cuba illegally, and buying our cab ride to the airport with a bottle of rum when we ran out of money. The drama was important for him, and the need to control uncontrollable variables, the ability to predict what people would likely do based on past behaviors. It was exciting, and it was exhausting. He FaceTimed me once, tailing someone just outside my apartment complex. The subject went to 2 Waffle Houses, another diner, and then the Jamaican hole in the wall down the street from where I lounged on my velvet sofa, an open novel resting on my belly. He's making drops, I said. Don't jump to conclusions, he said. I'm just observing and reporting. I'm not jumping. Dat Fire Jerk Chicken is closed on Mondays. It devastates me every time. He observed and reported it, and then he had to get off the call because he was speeding. A policeman was trying to pull him over, and he had to shake the cops or else he'd get burned. He called me back a few minutes later from a parking lot near the Gulch, and we made dinner plans. Once, he let me ride along. He told me to dress plainly. I wore a white t-shirt and black leggings, pulled my hair into a ponytail, and met him outside his home. He sized me up from inside expensive sunglasses, like stupid expensive, you guys. Exhaling the smoke of a Camel. Real discreet, he said. Look at your boobs. Your hair, the way you're walking, you just stand out. You're not forgettable. You're supposed to blend in. Are you wearing lipstick? Of course I'm wearing lipstick, I said, looking at him sideways in what I could only imagine was my best possible lighting. I'm the femme fatale. My role is to get you into the dangerous situations, not out of them. That's your job. I was joking, playing a role. No one is really like that. I thought, women have depth. We're only mysteries because you don't look hard enough. We saw a special screening of Notorious in which he laughed aloud at Cary Grant snapping Ingrid Bergman's neck. It doesn't work like that. He said, that doesn't make any sense. I told him later that when interviewed, Grant said Bergman should get an Oscar every year, whether or not she was in a movie. He imitated her mid-Atlantic accent, and when I did the one I'd been practicing for years, he covered his face. I have a terrible smile. I didn't have any wrinkles before I met you. Now I laugh all the time. At his place, he paused Jackie Brown when she's confronted in the parking deck to say, just so you know, if the police ask you to search your bag, you can just say no. If she had just said no, this whole thing could have been prevented. And I countered, but then she wouldn't have been able to out badass motherfucker Samuel L. Jackson. And he tried to argue with me, and I said, the way I see it, we only have one thing to talk about, one thing, and that's what you are willing to do for me. That's from Jackie Brown. Wouldn't that be great, though, if I just made it up? He laughed and covered his face again. We had a solid repartee. He paused the 3rd season of True Detective for similar reasons, to say, that's a fucking terrible surveillance position. Later, he said of Mahershala Ali's character, their relationship is really dysfunctional. He's a detective and she's a writer. So are we. I did not say how much they reminded me of us, that we were living in a noir movie. I noticed the similarities between them, the deception poorly hidden, the fights they had that weren't really about the things they fought over. We fought about other aspects of the show instead, more proxy wars. I loved his mystery in theory, but not in practice. I almost never mentioned or thought of him punching a wall after I threw him a surprise party, and he got too drunk to see that I was not actually mad at him. The time he asked my best friend if he could kiss her. The time he videoed a fight we were having so that I couldn't say he did something he never did. And when I tell the story of our trip to Cuba, I don't mention that the reason we ran out of money was because he snuck off to have drinks at the bar, and we ran out of money because of that. The fight we had before we flew on another trip, where I voiced my travel anxiety about being Arab near TSA, and he scoffed that I was being ridiculous, yelled over his shoulder as he walked into the other room, "It's not like you're gonna be waterboarded." I tell almost no one of the nightmare in the desert, where he executed a dozen children who looked like me, after he told me he was a mercenary in Iraq. He walked into unnecessary danger on a regular basis, with the best case scenario in his mind being that his death would be fast and cool. The problem occurs when real men act like characters, despite being whole humans. The tough guy with the heart of gold is a trope because it can't exist in reality. It allows men the idea that when they ignore their feelings go away, which is the exact opposite of the truth. By this logic, loving does not make him special, it makes him weak. Our anti-hero understands that the tough guy with a heart of gold is a fallacy. He knows he has to pick a thing, but he won't. He knows it would be better for him to stand by the person he leaves, to feel the things his heart wants him to feel. It would make his heart into gold and more whole, but it would not keep him tough. This acknowledgement does not change his decision, but he's aware of the decision he makes, however instantly regretful it must make him. And what a lonely and irredeemable way to live. This tough guy with a heart of gold can only be with us for a short period of time, by definition. I meant everything I ever said to you, he said finally when he called me drunk to end things. You are the most loving, beautiful, smart, and talented woman I have ever known, but I ain't the one. I can't give you the future you want. You deserve better than my limitations. I'm sorry this had to happen. I'm meant to die hard and alone. You wanted the tough guy with the heart of gold. This is that. Doesn't that sound like my thing? Right? Leaving is the main quality of men of this ilk, in the movies and out. Whether they end by falling on their sword for you, shipping you into your new life with your new husband, scouting the intentions of your rivals, or 30 years later performing in a Wild West show, they leave, because the tough guy with the heart of gold trope requires him to sacrifice himself for a greater good, even if that greater good by definition would never ever want or ask him to do that. The self-sacrifice is allegedly for the one they love, but it is just to maintain the image of the tough guy with the heart of gold, walking alone into the sunset, hoping that someone is watching longingly as they go, but not turning their